The vast emptiness of space stretched endlessly in all directions, broken only by the cold light of distant stars. In this darkness, the Zephyrian Empire had built their domain across 300 star systems. Their ships moved through the void like silver ghosts, sleek and graceful, powered by energy sources that humans had never dreamed of. Admiral Kethver stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Stellar Dominion. The crystalline walls around him pulsed with soft blue light, and holographic displays showed the battle unfolding below. His forearms moved with practiced precision as he directed the fleet's movements. The Zephyrians had evolved on a world where cooperation meant survival, and their military reflected this philosophy. Every ship moved in perfect harmony with the others. Like dancers following an ancient ritual, the planet below was called New Dakota by the humans who lived there. It was a simple farming world, covered in golden wheat fields and small towns, that reminded the colonists of home. 10,000 humans had made this place their new beginning. Far from the crowded cities of Earth, they had built schools for their children, hospitals for their sick, and dreams for their future. But today, those dreams were burning. The Zephyrian attack had begun at dawn. Their ships had appeared in the sky like falling stars, beautiful and terrible at the same time. The alien vessels fired beams of pure energy that cut through the atmosphere with surgical precision. They targeted military installations first, then communication centers, then power plants. Everything was calculated, measured, and efficient. Commander Kyle Rodriguez crouched behind the twisted remains of his command bunker, sweat mixing with blood on his face. Around him, the surviving members of the Colonial Defense Force tried to return fire with their kinetic weapons. The bullets bounced harmlessly off the alien energy shields, creating small sparks of light that faded instantly. "Sir, we've lost contact with sectors 7 through 12, reported Lieutenant Susan Hayes, her voice cracking with exhaustion. "The aliens are moving in formation patterns we've never seen before." Rodriguez watched through his tactical scope as the Zephyrian ground forces advanced. They moved like a living machine, each soldier knowing exactly where every other soldier would be. Their weapons fired in sequence, creating overlapping fields of destruction that left no space for the humans to hide. It was warfare raised to an art form, beautiful in its deadly efficiency. The humans fought back with everything they had. Farmers picked up hunting rifles and stood beside trained soldiers. Teachers and doctors worked frantically to save the wounded. Children huddled in basements while their parents fought and died in the streets above. But courage alone could not bridge the gap between human determination and alien technology. "Rodriguez to all units," the commander spoke into his radio, knowing that few would hear him. "Fall back to the secondary positions. We need to buy time for the evacuation ships." But there were no evacuation ships. The Zephyrian fleet had destroyed every human vessel in orbit within the first hour of the attack. The colonists were trapped on their own world, watching their civilization crumble under the methodical assault of beings they had never known existed. High above the planet, Admiral Kethver observed the battle with professional interest. His species had conquered dozens of worlds, but they prided themselves on doing so with minimal destruction. The Zephyrians believed that a truly advanced civilization should be able to win wars without unnecessary brutality. They disabled rather than destroyed, captured rather than killed, and always offered terms of surrender to their enemies. "The human resistance is stronger than our initial projections indicated," reported his tactical officer, Commander Vexara. "They continue fighting even when victory is impossible." Kethver's large eyes studied the tactical display with curiosity. Most species surrendered when faced with overwhelming force. It was the logical choice, the civilized response to inevitable defeat. But these humans seemed to operate by different rules. They fought even when wounded, regrouped even when scattered, and showed no signs of accepting the reality of their situation. "Perhaps they do not understand our superior technology," Kethver mused. "Increase the demonstration of our capabilities. Show them the futility of resistance." The Zephyrian fleet adjusted their formation, and energy beams lanced down from orbit with increased intensity. Entire city blocks vanished in flashes of light, reduced to dust and memory. The alien ground forces advanced with mechanical precision, their weapons creating corridors of destruction through the human defensive lines. Commander, Rodriguez felt the ground shake beneath him as another energy blast struck nearby. His ammunition was running low, his communications were failing, and his soldiers were dying around him. But something deep in his human soul refused to accept defeat. Maybe it was pride, maybe it was stubbornness, or maybe it was the simple refusal to let evil triumph without a fight. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the orbital platforms," Hayes reported. "It's the aliens. They're demanding our surrender." Rodriguez listened as the alien words were translated by their computer systems. The message was polite, almost gentle. Zephyrians promised that civilians would be spared, that infrastructure would be preserved, and that human culture would be respected under their rule. All they asked was for the military forces to lay down their weapons and accept the new reality. "Tell them where they can stick their surrender," Rodriguez replied. The battle continued for 6 more hours. The humans fought from building to building, street to street, room to room. They used every trick they had learned in centuries of warfare against their own species. They set traps, created ambush, and turned every piece of debris into a weapon. Or a shield. But technology won in the end, as it always did. The Zephyrian forces were too advanced, too numerous, and too well coordinated. One by one, the human defensive positions fell silent. The golden wheat fields of New Dakota became burial grounds for dreams and hopes, and the simple desire to live free among the stars. "Commander," Rodriguez made his final transmission from the ruins of the colonial capital. Static filled the channel, and explosions echoed in the background as he spoke the words that would travel across the galaxy. "This is New Dakota calling any human vessel. We are under attack by unknown aliens. They're too strong. Tell Earth... Tell them we tried." The transmission ended as a Zephyrian energy beam turned the communications array into molten metal. Admiral Kethfer watched the last pockets of resistance fade from his tactical display with satisfaction. The conquest of New Dakota was complete, achieved with minimal damage to the planet's infrastructure and resources. The Zephyrians had won another victory in their long campaign of expansion. They had demonstrated once again that civilization and technology would always triumph over primitive brutality. The galaxy was becoming a more orderly place under their guidance. One conquered world at a time. But 18 days later, that message reached Earth, and the humans who heard it were nothing like the peaceful farmers of New Dakota. The message from New Dakota reached Earth's United Defense Command, headquarters at exactly 1400 hours on a Tuesday afternoon. Fleet Admiral Lisa Carter was reviewing supply reports when her aide burst into her office with the emergency transmission. The words hit her like a physical blow, each sentence burning itself into her memory as she listened to Commander Rodriguez's final desperate call for help. Carter had gray hair and scars from the Luna mining wars, but her eyes still held the fire that had made her the youngest fleet commander in human history. She had fought pirates in the asteroid belt, crushed rebellions on Mars, and earned her reputation through decades of brutal space combat. Now she faced something entirely new, an enemy that had destroyed a human colony and killed 10,000 innocent people. "Get me the Defense Council," she ordered, her voice steady despite the rage building inside her. "Full emergency session. And patch me through to the shipyards at Titan Station." Within hours, the most powerful military leaders of humanity gathered in the secure conference room beneath the Swiss Alps. General Robert Hayes commanded the Marine Corps. Admiral Kevin Thompson led the Space Navy, and Director Patricia Walsh oversaw military intelligence. These were the people who had forged humanity's war machine through generations of conflict and bloodshed. "The aliens made their first mistake," Carter announced to the assembled officers. "They picked a fight with humans." The room fell silent. As the tactical display showed the location of New Dakota and the estimated strength of the alien fleet, the Zephyrian Empire controlled hundreds of star systems. Their technology was clearly superior, and their military had never known defeat. Any rational analysis would suggest that humanity was hopelessly outmatched, but humans had never been particularly rational when it came to warfare. "We're authorizing the deployment of the Retribution," Carter continued. "Full combat load maximum, crew complement, and unrestricted rules of engagement." The UES Retribution was humanity's newest and most powerful warship, a kilometer-long monster of steel and hatred that had been designed for one purpose: to destroy anything that threatened human survival. Unlike the elegant alien vessels, the Retribution was built like a fortress that could move through space. Its armor was thick enough to ram asteroids, its weapons were designed to crack planets, and its crew was selected from the most experienced killers in human space. Captain Jack Morrison received his orders while the ship was docked at Titan Station. He was a tall man with graying hair and cold blue eyes that had seen too much death. Morrison had commanded ships through the Outer Colony Wars, fought smugglers in the Belt, and earned his reputation as one of humanity's most effective combat commanders. His crew respected him because he brought them home alive, and his enemies feared him because he never showed mercy. "Sir, we've received priority orders from Earth Command," reported his executive officer, Commander Sarah Mitchell. "Full deployment to the Outer Rim, combat mission." Morrison read the orders with growing anticipation. After years of fighting human criminals and rebels, he was finally facing a real enemy. The aliens had killed human civilians, destroyed a human colony, and threatened the expansion of human civilization. They would learn what happened when someone attacked the wrong species. "All hands, prepare for immediate departure," Morrison announced over the ship's communication system. "We're going to war." The Retribution's crew consisted of 800 of the most experienced warriors humanity had ever produced. Chief Engineer Lavra Bennett had kept ships running during the siege of Europa Station. Weapons Officer Danny Walsh had destroyed more pirate vessels than any other gunner in the fleet. Navigation Officer Amy Turner could plot a course through an asteroid field while under enemy fire. These were not soldiers playing at war. They were killers who had learned their trade in the darkness between worlds. The ship itself was a monument to human military engineering. Its hull was constructed from compressed titanium alloy that could withstand direct hits from nuclear weapons. Its engines were powerful enough to accelerate the massive vessel to combat speed within minutes. Its weapon systems included railguns that fired tungsten slugs at relativistic velocities, missile launchers loaded with fusion warheads, and point defense turrets that could track and destroy incoming projectiles. But the most important feature of the Retribution was its design philosophy. Where alien ships prioritized elegance and efficiency, the human vessel was built for maximum destruction. Every system had backups, every weapon was designed to kill, and every crew member was trained to fight even when wounded and dying. Navigation. "Plot a course for the new Dakota system," Morrison ordered as the ship cleared Earth's orbit. "Maximum hyperspace velocity." The journey would take 3 weeks, but Morrison used the time to prepare his crew for what was coming. They studied the fragmentary data from the colony's defense forces, analyzed the alien weapon signatures, and planned their attack strategy. The humans had no idea what they were facing, but they approached the unknown with the same brutal pragmatism that had carried them through centuries of warfare. "Sir, the aliens seem to fight in formation," reported Intelligence Officer Mark Taylor. "Their ships move in coordinated patterns like they're dancing." Morrison studied the tactical analysis with interest. The Zephyrians appeared to follow strict protocols, maintaining precise distances and firing in calculated sequences. It was sophisticated, efficient, and probably very effective against enemies who fought by similar rules. "They're going to learn that humans don't dance," Morrison replied. The crew spent hours in combat drills, practicing maneuvers that would have horrified any civilized military force. They trained to ram enemy ships, to continue fighting with massive hull breaches, and to use their own vessel as a weapon when conventional tactics failed. The Retribution was not just a warship, it was a battering ram designed to smash through enemy formations and keep firing until nothing remained. "Sir, we're approaching the new Dakota system," Amy Turner reported as the ship dropped out of hyperspace. "Alien fleet detected." 37 vessels in standard patrol formation. Morrison walked to the forward viewport and stared at the alien ships. They were beautiful in their own way, like crystalline sculptures floating in the void. Their formations were perfect, their movements graceful, and their technology clearly superior to anything humanity possessed. "They're about to learn the difference between fighting and surviving," Morrison said quietly. "All hands, battle stations. Today we show the galaxy what humans are really made of." The Retribution began its approach toward the alien fleet, its massive bulk moving with deceptive speed through the darkness. On the bridge, Morrison's crew prepared for battle with the calm efficiency of professional killers. They had faced impossible odds before and emerged victorious. Through sheer determination and willingness to pay any price for victory, the aliens were about to meet their first humans. The Zephyrian detection systems registered the human vessel the moment it emerged from hyperspace. Admiral Kethver studied the readings with 4 eyes that had witnessed the conquest of dozens of worlds. The ship was massive, crude, and completely unlike anything in his extensive database of galactic military vessels. "Tactical analysis," he commanded, his voice carrying the authority of 3 centuries of military tradition. "Commander." Vexara manipulated the holographic displays with practiced efficiency. "The vessel appears to be constructed from primitive metal alloys. Its design suggests a focus on durability rather than maneuverability. Energy readings indicate fusion-based propulsion and what appear to be kinetic weapons." Kethver felt a mixture of amusement and curiosity. In all his years of conquest, he had never encountered a species that still used solid projectiles in space combat. The Zephyrian Empire had evolved beyond such crude methods millennia ago, developing energy weapons that could precisely target enemy systems without causing unnecessary destruction. "One vessel against our entire fleet," he mused. "These humans must be either incredibly brave or completely insane." The stellar dominion moved into position at the head of the Zephyrian formation. Around it, 36 other ships arranged themselves in the classic battle pattern that had served the Empire for generations. Each vessel knew its exact position, its specific role, and its precise timing in the upcoming engagement. They moved like a school of fish, each individual perfectly synchronized with the whole. On the bridge of the Retribution, Captain Morrison watched the alien fleet with the cold calculation of a predator studying its prey. The enemy ships were beautiful, he had to admit. Their crystalline hulls caught the light of New Dakota's sun and reflected it in brilliant patterns across the void. But beauty meant nothing in combat, and Morrison had learned long ago that the most dangerous enemy was often the one who underestimated human determination. "Sir, the aliens are opening a communication channel," reported Communications Officer Linda Harper. "They're using standard galactic protocols." Morrison nodded. "Put them through." The main screen flickered to life, revealing Admiral Kethver in all his alien majesty. The Zephyrian leader stood nearly 8 feet tall, his 4 arms moving in gestures that conveyed both authority and condescension. His skin was a pale blue color, marked with intricate patterns that seemed to shift and change as he spoke. "Primitive vessel," Kethver's voice carried through the translation system with clinical precision. "You have entered territory claimed by the Zephyrian Empire. Your species has violated our space and attacked our lawful expansion. You will surrender immediately or face the consequences of your actions." Morrison studied the alien commander with professional interest. The being's posture suggested complete confidence, the kind of arrogance that came from never having faced a real challenge. His fleet was arranged in textbook formations, his weapons were charged but not yet targeted, and his entire demeanor suggested someone who viewed this encounter as a minor inconvenience. "This is Captain Jack Morrison of the United Earthship Retribution," Morrison replied, his voice carrying the weight of centuries of human warfare. "You have exactly 60 seconds to withdraw from human territory before I turn your pretty little fleet into scrap metal." The alien's 4 eyes widened slightly, and Morrison could see confusion flickering across his features. In the Zephyrian Empire, warfare was conducted according to strict protocols. There were proper procedures for surrender, established rules for engagement, and civilized methods for resolving conflicts. The humans' crude threat violated every principle of advanced military doctrine. "Your primitive threats are amusing," Kethfer replied after a moment. "We shall demonstrate proper warfare techniques before accepting your surrender. Your species will learn the benefits of joining our empire." Morrison almost smiled. The alien commander was treating this like a training exercise, a demonstration of superior technology for the benefit of backward primitives. He had no idea that humans had spent their entire history learning how to kill each other in the most efficient ways possible. "Chief Bennett, I want all power to engines and weapons," Morrison ordered. "Mr. Walsh, prepare the kinetic batteries and load the special warheads." Throughout the retribution, the crew moved with practiced efficiency. They had drilled for this moment countless times, practicing maneuvers that would have horrified any civilized military force. The humans understood that space combat was not about elegant formations or precise targeting. It was about destroying the enemy before they could destroy you. The Zephyrian fleet began its approach with mathematical precision. Each ship maintained its assigned position, their energy weapons charging in perfect synchronization. Admiral Kethfer intended to fire a demonstration volley that would disable the human vessel without destroying it. The primitive ship would be captured, its crew interrogated, and their species would be offered terms for peaceful integration into the Empire. "Sir, they're not targeting our vital systems," reported Amy Turner from the navigation station. "Their weapons are aimed at our communication array and engine components." Morrison nodded with grim satisfaction. "Of course they are. They want to disable us, not destroy us. They think this is some kind of civilized duel." The concept of total war was foreign to the Zephyrian mindset. Their conflicts were fought with restraint, their victories achieved through superior technology and tactics rather than sheer brutality. They preserved infrastructure, respected civilian populations, and always offered terms of surrender to their enemies. It was warfare elevated to an art form, clean and efficient and utterly predictable. "They're about to learn why humans are the apex predators of Earth," Morrison said quietly. "All hands, prepare for ramming speed." The Retribution's engines roared to life, pushing the massive vessel forward with acceleration that would have been impossible for the graceful alien ships. Morrison's crew braced themselves as the ship's artificial gravity struggled to compensate for the violent maneuvers ahead. On the Zephyrian flagship, alarm signals began to sound as the human vessel suddenly changed course. Instead of maintaining a respectful distance for the traditional exchange of fire, the primitive ship was charging directly toward their formation. "This is impossible," Commander Vexara reported. "They're accelerating directly into our battle line. This violates every principle of space combat." Admiral Kethfer stared at the tactical display in growing confusion. The human ship was behaving like a wild animal, abandoning all pretense of civilized warfare in favor of what appeared to be a suicide attack. No rational species would sacrifice a valuable warship in such a manner. "Increase power to defensive systems," he ordered. "Prepare to capture the vessel when it realizes the futility of its actions." But Morrison had no intention of being captured. The Retribution was not just a warship, it was a weapon of total destruction piloted by a species that had learned to wage war without limits or mercy. The aliens were about to discover that humans had never learned to fight pretty wars. The Zephyrian fleet fired their perfectly coordinated volley at exactly the moment their tactical computers calculated maximum effectiveness. 37 energy beams lanced through space toward the Retribution's communication arrays and engine housings. The aliens expected to see the primitive vessel disabled and drifting, ready for capture and interrogation. Instead, the human ship absorbed the energy blasts like a sponge soaking up water. Sections of armor plating glowed white-hot for a few seconds before cooling systems kicked in and restored normal temperatures. The Retribution's designers had learned from centuries of human conflict that any weapon system had to be built to survive direct hits from enemy fire. "Minimal damage to outer hull sections," reported Chief Engineer Lavra Bennett from deep within. The ship's armored core. All primary systems operating at full capacity. Captain Morrison watched the tactical display with cold satisfaction. The alien weapons were impressive, but they were designed to disable rather than destroy. The Zephyrians fought wars like gentlemen, following rules that had probably worked perfectly against every other species they had encountered. They're about to learn that humans didn't get to the top of the food chain by playing nice, Morrison sighed. All weapons prepare to fire on my command. The retribution smashed through the center of the Zephyrian formation like a battering ram hitting a crystal sculpture. The alien ships scattered in confusion as the massive human vessel plowed through their perfect battle line. Their elegant formations, calculated for maximum efficiency against civilized opponents, offered no protection against an enemy that treated space combat like a bar fight. Admiral Keffer watched in horror as his flagship sensors showed the human ship moving through his fleet with impossible speed. The primitive vessel was firing weapons in all directions, its crude projectiles tearing through Zephyrian hulls with devastating effectiveness. This was not warfare as he understood it. This was pure savagery unleashed in the depths of space. All ships reform defensive positions, he ordered, but his voice carried a note of panic that his crew had never heard before. Concentrate fire on the human vessel's weapon systems. The Zephyrian ships tried to adapt their tactics, but their training had prepared them for elegant duels between civilized fleets. They had never faced an enemy that ignored casualties, abandoned formations, and aimed for total destruction rather than tactical advantage. The human ship moved like a wounded animal, striking out at everything within reach. Danny Walsh's weapons control station became the center of organized chaos. The young officer had trained for this moment his entire life, learning to coordinate multiple weapon systems while under enemy fire. His fingers danced across the controls as railguns fired tungsten slugs at relativistic speeds, tearing through alien armor like paper. Target their command ships, Morrison ordered. Show them what happens when you mess with human civilians. The Retribution's point defense turrets swiveled to track the graceful alien vessels, their computer-controlled systems calculating firing solutions with deadly precision. Each turret was capable of firing 3,000 rounds per minute, creating walls of metal that shredded anything in their path. The Zephyrian ships, designed for elegant maneuvers and energy weapon duels, had no defense against the storm of projectiles. Commander Vexara's tactical station erupted in sparks as a tungsten slug punched through the Stellar Dominion's hull and exploded in the engineering section. The alien officer's forearms moved desperately over his controls, trying to coordinate a defense against an enemy that fought without honor or restraint. Sir, we're losing ships faster than we can adapt, he reported. The humans are targeting our vital systems with deliberate precision. Admiral Keffer felt something he had never experienced in 3 centuries of conquest: fear. The human vessel was systematically destroying his fleet, but not in any way that his tactical training had prepared him for. They were not trying to disable or capture, they were trying to kill everything that moved. This is not warfare, he whispered. This is madness. But Morrison and his crew saw it differently. They had grown up on a world where survival meant being tougher, faster, and more ruthless than anything that wanted to eat you. Humanity had fought its way to the top of Earth's ecosystem through millions of years of evolution, and they had carried that killer instinct with them to the stars. Lavra, I need more power to the forward guns, Morrison called over the ship's communication system. You've got it, Captain, Bennett replied from the engine room. Pushing the reactors to 120% capacity. The chief engineer worked her magic in the depths of the ship, coaxing more power from systems that were already operating beyond their design limits. Around her, damage control teams sealed hull breaches and rerouted power conduits while the ship shook from repeated enemy hits. The humans fought with the desperate efficiency of a species that had learned to survive in a hostile universe. Amy Turner's navigation station showed the battle unfolding in 3-dimensional chaos. The Zephyrian fleet, so elegant and coordinated at the start of the engagement, was now scattered across space like leaves in a hurricane. Some ships were trying to flee, others were attempting to form new battle lines, and several were simply drifting with their crews dead or dying. "Sir, the alien formation is collapsing," she reported. "They're breaking off in groups of 3 and 4, Morrison nodded grimly. The aliens had finally realized that they were not fighting a civilized enemy. The humans had brought the law of the jungle to space, and the Zephyrians were learning that evolution had produced something far more dangerous than their elegant technology. The Retribution's hull was scarred and blackened from enemy fire, but the ship continued to fight with mechanical determination. Morrison's crew worked their weapons with the focused intensity of predators bringing down prey. They had been attacked, their people had been killed, and they were responding with the full fury of a species that had never learned to lose gracefully. "Denny, target their flagship," Morrison ordered. "Let's end this." The weapons officer smiled as he locked onto the Stellar Dominion. The alien command ship was trying to escape, its crystalline hull glowing with the energy of overloaded systems. But there was nowhere to run in the vacuum of space, and the humans had come too far to let their enemies escape. The Retribution's main guns fired in perfect synchronization, sending a stream of tungsten slugs toward the alien flagship. Admiral Kethfer had just enough time to realize that his empire's expansion had finally met something that would not be conquered. The Stellar Dominion exploded in a brilliant flash of light, taking with it the last hope of Zephyrian victory. Around the wreckage, the surviving alien ships began to surrender or flee, their crews finally understanding that they had encountered something beyond their comprehension. Morrison watched the destruction with professional satisfaction. The galaxy had just learned its first lesson about human warfare. The silence that followed the destruction of the Stellar Dominion was more terrible than the noise of battle had been. Where 37 Zephyrian warships had once moved in perfect formation, only twisted metal and cooling plasma remained. The few surviving alien vessels drifted helplessly through the debris field, their crews too shocked to comprehend what had just happened to their invincible fleet. Captain Morrison stood on the bridge of the Retribution, watching the tactical display with grim satisfaction. The human ship was scarred and blackened from the battle, but it remained fully operational. Around him, his crew worked with quiet efficiency to assess damage and prepare for whatever came next. They had won, but victory in space was always temporary until the enemy was completely destroyed. "Damage report," Morrison ordered. Chief Engineer Lavra. Bennett's voice crackled over the communication system from deep within the ship. "Hull breaches on decks 7 and 12, but emergency. Seals are holding. We lost 2-point defense turrets and have some damage to the port engine housing. Nothing that can't be fixed with a few days in dry dock," Morrison nodded. The Retribution had been built to take punishment and keep fighting, a philosophy that reflected humanity's approach to everything from exploration to warfare. Where other species might build ships for speed or elegance, humans built them to survive and kill. "Sir, we're receiving transmissions from the surviving alien vessels," reported Communications Officer Linda Harper. "Multiple surrender requests. And sir, they're begging us not to destroy them." The captain studied the scattered remnants of the Zephyrian fleet with cold eyes. Admiral Kethfer was dead, his flagship nothing but expanding gas and metal fragments. The alien empire's most powerful fleet had been reduced to wreckage in less than 3 hours by a single human warship. The survivors were learning what it meant to face a species that viewed war as a tool for survival rather than a game between civilized opponents. "Open a channel to all alien vessels," Morrison commanded. The main screen flickered to life, showing the terrified faces of several Zephyrian officers. Their elegant features were marked by expressions of shock and disbelief. These beings had conquered dozens of worlds through superior technology and tactical expertise, but they had never faced an enemy that fought with such brutal efficiency. "This is Captain Morrison of the UES Retribution," he announced. "You attacked human civilians and destroyed a human colony. Your admiral chose to start a war, and now you've learned what human warfare really looks like. One of the alien commanders, a female with intricate blue markings across her pale skin, spoke with a voice that trembled with fear. "Please, we surrender. Unconditionally, our fleet is destroyed, our forces defeated. We ask only that you spare our remaining crews." Morrison considered her words with the cold calculation of a predator deciding whether to finish wounded prey. The Zephyrians had expected to conduct a civilized conquest, following their established protocols for expansion and integration. Instead, they had encountered something that their military doctrine had no answer for: total war waged by a species that had evolved to kill or be killed. "You will transmit the location of every Zephyrian military installation within 100 light years," Morrison ordered. "You will also provide complete technical specifications for your weapons and ships. Any attempt to deceive us will result in the immediate destruction of your remaining vessels." The alien officers exchanged glances of desperate communication. Their empire had never been defeated in open battle, never faced demands for unconditional surrender from a technologically inferior enemy, but the wreckage floating around them told a story that their proud military history could not explain. We agree to your terms?" the female commander replied. "The information will be transmitted immediately." As the data flowed into the Retribution's computers, Morrison turned his attention to the planet below. New Dakota still burned from the Zephyrian attack, its human population dead or scattered. The colony that had been a symbol of human expansion into the galaxy was now a monument to what happened when someone attacked the wrong species. "Navigation, set course for the inner planets," Morrison ordered. "We need to send a message to Earth Command about what we've discovered out here." "Amy." Turner worked her controls with practiced efficiency, plotting a course that would take them back toward human space. The journey would give Morrison time to compile his report and plan for what was coming next. The galaxy had just learned that humanity was not another peaceful species ready for conquest. "Sir, we're receiving additional transmissions from across the sector," Harper reported. "Multiple alien governments are requesting peaceful contact with humanity. They're offering trade agreements, non-aggression pacts, and territorial concessions." Morrison allowed himself a slight smile. News of the battle had already begun to spread through the quantum communication networks that connected alien civilizations. Across the galaxy, the refined Zephyrian Empire, masters of elegant warfare and technological superiority, had been completely destroyed by a single human vessel. Other species were beginning to realize that they needed to reconsider their assumptions about the new arrivals. "Put together a full battle report for Fleet Command," Morrison instructed his crew. "Include everything we learned about alien tactics, technology, and psychology. The Admiral is going to want to know exactly what we're dealing with out here." The Retribution began its journey back toward human space, leaving behind a debris field that would serve as a warning to anyone who thought humanity could be easily conquered. The ship's hull bore the scars of battle like badges of honor, each mark a reminder of what human determination could accomplish against impossible odds. In the weeks that followed, the story of the battle spread throughout the galaxy like wildfire. The Zephyrian Empire collapsed as subject worlds declared independence and rival powers moved to claim former territories. Other alien civilizations began to realize that the galaxy had gained a new apex predator, one that approached warfare with a fundamentally different philosophy than anything they had encountered before on Earth. Fleet Admiral Lisa Carter received Morrison's report with satisfaction and growing concern. The captain had proven that human military doctrine could defeat superior alien technology, but he had also revealed that humanity was surrounded by potential enemies with capabilities beyond current understanding. "Double the shipbuilding program," she ordered the Defense Council. "We're going to need a lot more ships like the Retribution." The galaxy had operated under the assumption that warfare was a civilized pursuit with established rules and acceptable limits. Conflicts were fought between military forces while civilian populations remained safe, infrastructure was preserved. Whenever possible, and total victory was considered wasteful and barbaric, humanity had just demonstrated that when survival was at stake, civilization was a luxury they could not afford. The age of elegant galactic warfare was ending, replaced by something far more primitive and infinitely more dangerous. The human era had begun, and the stars would never be safe again.